So let me go unwind because I know a little bit about your story, but I just want to go a step backwards rather than, hey, how'd you get into real estate?
Sure.
What were you doing right before that led into getting into real estate?
So actually, surprisingly, I was actually a drug and alcohol addictions counselor. That was
Really?
sorry to throw you for a curve, but but yeah,
I
so
did not know that story.
yeah, that was my original path. So coming out of high school, that's what I ultimately wanted to do. I actually went to San Diego for college and studied up there for the degree I needed to get.
And what degree was that?
It's a AODS, alcohol and other drug studies, like bachelor type degree.
Wow. Okay.
And then your next level is like a license. They call it a LISAC, Licensed Independent Substance Abuse Counselor. And I never got there. I transitioned into real estate before I went down that road. But yeah, ultimately that was the goal. And then burnout was a real thing with that. I mean, there's so many rewarding things that come with it, helping people with addictions. But there's also the burnout, which is very real, and trying
taxing.
exactly, and trying not to take people's stories home with you at night. It's a daily challenge. So that was part of the transition, and then also income wise, counselors just aren't paid much, so that had to be in the back of my head as well. But yeah, that was actually my first career venture path. And
Wow. What made you want to get into that? And you said during high school, but what was there something that prompted that?
yeah, so high school, my senior year, locally over at Chaparral High School, lost 4 friends to drug overdoses just in my junior and senior year alone. So that definitely started the path of like, how can I help people like this? And then I've always had this keen sense of like, psychology might be the way to propel you in like relationships and communication and whatnot. So that was always there too, of like where I wanted to learn more about how, the human brain works and how social, how to be social with people when I wasn't as social. Cause I was kind of that introvert kid in high school and growing up. So yeah, those are kind of the 2 things that got me interested in it.
In your major, was that a lot? Did they go over a lot of psychology, how the brain works, sociology, things like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's probably most of what it is because, addiction, it's mostly to do with behavioral and cognitive. So those are like kind of the 2 things you'll focus on of like why people, act that way, but really what's behind it and what are the deep down things that are pushing people to use drugs and whatnot. So you have to really peel that apart, and it's rare that it's just, somebody just stepped into drugs and then just loved it. There's always some underlying issue, at least from my experience.
It's random. So this morning I'm having coffee with someone who is a counselor, and they were talking. I was asking, what's the age range of your clientele? And she's like, it's really like 19 and above. I used to do adolescents. She's like, but that was just a lot harder. And it was more you took a lot more on, or she was taking a lot more on when she would go home. And then also that there was very little control there because a lot of it had to do with your upbringing and what they were going home to. Right. And, at 19 and over, you're more in control. Right. So if you're on your own, you can be living at home, but you could have the choice to leave, where before that you didn't have that. And
right.
The big thing for her though, again, like you said, was that burnout's real. Like you're taking so much home. I'm like, well then who are you talking to? Because you got to get that out.
Exactly. But you're technically not allowed to, you can share general basics, but due to like HIPAA compliance, you can't even go home and share what you've learned in the sessions. So yeah, it's interesting dynamic of like how it keeps being bottled up in you of like, I can't share unless it's with your colleagues, you can't share it with anybody due to HIPAA. But yeah, totally the adolescent thing, it's tough because you're also dealing with family dynamics too.
Yeah.
In that, because like you said, when they're adolescents, yes, it's a lot of their behavior, but it's also a lot of the nurture part of it, of the family, like what's going on with the family dynamics.
Supporting you at home,
exactly.
Or are they narcissistic, or
yep,
yeah,
or is it a toxic environment when you go home? And again, it's all in the underlying issues, at least from what I learned in my experience, of what's driving the addiction or whatever it is, the substance use.
So you're there, you're done with that. Like, hey, I'm burnt. I'm helping a lot of people, but man, this isn't sustainable financially, mentally for yourself. What then prompted you to say, hey, I'm going to go into real estate? Or did you try something else afterwards?
Yeah, so I've always been that like entrepreneurship mindset. Even going back to San Diego when I was going to school, I was working at a bike shop on Mission Beach,
Nice.
and that was like my job while I was going to class and whatnot. But even then, I remember uh, we'd cycle out bikes that got too used and worn from all the rentals on them. And I just noticed the owner was kind of just selling them away at mass and like losing a bunch of money. So I was like, hey, man, what if we did this, and gave a few suggestions. And at that time, I was 19, 20 years old. And he's like, wow, I've never thought of it that way. Well, if you run it, you can do it. I just don't have the time for it. And so I started bringing these bikes home, switching out the wheels in my garage, which is really what I lived in. It's a whole nother story because it's San Diego, Mission
Right.
Beach, like crazy amounts of money for what you're renting. But so I'd bring them home and I'd just flip out the wheels, clean them up a bit, and I'd repost them on, at that time, Craigslist was big, and ultimately make maybe 10% less of what they were going for new versus where he was selling them at like 50% discounts.
Wow.
And ultimately I ended up leaving that company and that shop and actually creating my own little side business where I was
Really?
buying used bikes and flipping them, almost like flipping houses, but bikes.
Yeah.
So that was always in the back of my head. And then even with the counseling, like I was never that person who was like, oh, I'm going to work my way up the chain. I would go into a company and I'd start to diagnose the imperfections and inefficiencies of the company. And ultimately it was never like, oh, I want to be this high up counselor. It was like, I want to own the treatment center. So that's always been like how my brain works. And even during school, I'm like, I could be out doing all these other stuffs, making money, like even in high school. So,
Where does that come from?
you know, I don't know. That's a good question. And I've got the question of like, do you think people are born with the entrepreneurship in your blood? I go back and forth on that because I think there is some nature involved where you like kind of roll into it based on social aspects. But I do in the back of my head kind of think there is somewhat where like a me and you have to have some type of personality or some type of mindset to go through what we go through on a daily basis, like commission only type
Right.
business. I can't tell you exactly where it came from, but I can tell you I watched a lot of Shark Tank growing up and like all these business type shows. So maybe that ingrained it a little bit in me, but I don't know. It's just how my brain's always worked.
Were your parents entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so both my parents my dad's retired from new home sales he was in it 19 years.
Wow.
My mom is in real estate still to this day. So 25 years for her in residential resale. So definitely it's the commission structure, not corporate. That's definitely in the background.
Independent.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe that is okay.
Could
Is
be.
that actually did that spur? So you've had this entrepreneurial spirit,
Yeah.
flipping the bikes, and then started your own gig.
Yep.
How did that phase out, or was it like, hey, I'm done with school, I'm going back home, and I'm done with the bike business?
Well, California phased me out, to be honest. Like just the price point, the cost of living and everything. It was just, I didn't see a path there. And that was the bottom line. I'm like, maybe I'll go back to Arizona, stay with my parents while I figure it out. And that was the start of it. And I actually got back into counseling. I got hired right away, right when I got back to Arizona as a director at a treatment facility. So I went right into that right when I got back. But still, it was just, again, burnout came right back to me, even though I got a little few-month break when I came back. It was just right back into that. And I just, deep down, I knew that, like, yes, helping people is what I wanted to do, but I don't know if that was the platform where I wanted to do it. And then, honestly, with real estate, I didn't want to be a realtor. That was the truth, because I saw my parents, my dad, he'd drive all the way out to Maricopa every day fighting traffic 2 hours or whatever, because we lived in Scottsdale, and drive the 2 hours out there, sit in the office 6 to 7 hours, then he'd drive back. So for me, I was like, new homes, definitely no. And then my mom, she would never be around like on the weekends, and to me at that age, I was like, oh, well, I want weekends. Weekends is when everybody's off, and that's the time to have fun. So honestly, real estate wasn't even an option at first. But then when I met my now wife, she's my girlfriend at the time, we were thinking about getting married and all that. And honestly, at that time, I'm like, what am I going to do to get my income up? and started going through all these different phases, starting a business potentially, starting an Amazon FBA, which I almost regret that because that would have been early on in the days of Amazon FBA. Or maybe do I just try real estate? And that's where it started. Then maybe I just try it. And then for me, when I try something, I just don't give up. So I think that was part of it.
No, let's tip my toe in the water.
No.
I'm going all in.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, and I know it's not common for a lot of agents. I mean, it did take 6 months to get a paycheck, but for me, I was just all in, man. I lived at open houses to start off the bat. I wasn't like, oh, let me try this. Let me try to buy leads. It was just like, nope, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it. And I'm going to be at open house until I meet people to sell homes.
Did you go to mom's brokerage?
Yes, I was under her brokerage.
Okay.
Yep.
And
I sat all of her listings, which is interesting because she is you could call her a luxury agent. Most of her deals are $1 million, $2 million plus. And even at that time, that was her strategy. So she's like, well, you can sit my open houses. And to me, I didn't know any different. I'm like, okay, cool. Just great. That's perfect. It's a great platform. But I'm stepping into like $2 million homes as a new agent,
brand new,
young guy. Yep. And I learned a lot from that. One, I learned that's not the best strategy. Is like a lot of agents want to come in and just go, oh, I'll sell luxury and I can even do a few homes a year. But it takes way more than that to tap into a luxury market. Clientele is a lot harder to connect with. They've all got their connections. But I did learn a lot from it, where it's like high level objections and around finances and taxes and 1031 exchanges. So any type of objection I got, which I totally screwed up in the time, like they were not working with me when I couldn't answer what a 1031 was, but I'd write them down and I'd bring them home and I just Google them. I'd be like, what's about it? And I'd dive into what it was.
I love
and
it.
I learn it, and I knew for the next time someone asked me that question, I'm going to know it.
Dude, whenever I bring someone onto the team or as a loan officer in the company, I give them a blank book and I go, this is your objection and question book. And anytime you get an objection, you write it down. Anytime you have a question, write it down, and then bring it to me, and then we'll work through it all. So the next time it happens, that's awesome that you were doing that.
I need to implement that with my team now.
Because same
I love that.
You got a cool story going behind it because that's what you used to do. Was your first paycheck after 6 months? Was it from a luxury deal or something else?
Oh no. So that was like a rental. I still have the check on my wall. It's like $150. And that's the other thing that a lot of agents, they get in it and they think, oh, either my friend will buy a house, I'll do it on the side, or maybe I'm going all in, and they expect that sale to come pretty quickly, where you and I know like that, it's a grind, man, to get going. And typically you got to work your way up the food chain is basically what I'm saying. And I had to start with whatever I could get, which was rentals. And because like I said, the open house, it was all a learning lesson. I got no leads to start there, but then I started to learn maybe luxury isn't it. And then I went to my brokerage and I said, okay, what are the lower price points to where maybe it's first time home buyers? And that's where my first real niche was evolved, where I was like, people around my age, I could probably connect with. And that was really just the start. And I said, I don't know where it's going to go from here, but if they're my age, I can connect with them. And maybe they're buying their first home and maybe they're not as, savvy. Yeah, exactly. Into the real estate. Then maybe I can slip in, get by and find a niche. And that took off. Like I just went all into like educating first time home buyers, YouTube videos, all that.
So what'd that look like?
I mean, it was great. So I'll always remember. So my first thing I did once I started to take off in that niche is I went into my LinkedIn, and any friend, any connection I had from Arizona at that time, believe it or not, you could download and export everybody's email.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that.
Shut that down.
Yeah, they've shut that down.
You used to be able to take the whole thing.
Even their phone numbers and everything. And I was like, no way, this can't be real. And so I download it, and in a second, I had 500 people. And at that time, that was a lot of people for me. And I'm like, now if I just get a message out to them, even if it's just to start, hey, I'm in real estate now, quick little video. Hey, ever wondered how the inspection process works? And it was all these like little short videos. Some of them were just filmed on the phone.
How long ago was this?
2015.
Wow.
So yeah.
Okay.
That was before like
Yeah.
YouTube was big and like
Yeah.
the video thing was big. And I'd either text blast them out or I'd create a link that drove. And at that time, there was no thumbnail really. It was just like a link in an email. It's like, want to learn more about inspections? Boom. And put a link in there. And I'm telling you, man, that was like the catalyst to my career. That and the open houses.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Now, how long did that go before you transitioned into, because now you have teams and stuff. So
Right.
how long until you said, hey, I'm going to start mentoring other people?
Yeah, I was able to scale it pretty fast. I would say it was year 3 or 4 when I was like, okay, now I'm getting to this point. And even that, I'll remember the day I'm pulling into my driveway. I think, no, my daughter was not born yet, but it was around the time when we were getting married. We were engaged at the time for sure, or maybe married. Yeah, married. And then, yeah, it was like a year of engagement and then married. So yes, we had just been married. I get in the driveway after running since like 8 a.m. to 6. I was in Surprise. Then I was out in Arcadia. And then I was in Scottsdale to finish up the day. And I get in the driveway and I get 2 more calls from other people. Hey, I'm coming into town. This San Diego friend. Can you show me tomorrow morning? And it was almost like one, like a breakdown, half breakdown, but half epiphany, where it was like mentally, I was like, oh man, I am just burning out like I was feeling in the counseling business. I'm like, so what do I do? But then on the other hand, other side, I'm like, well, maybe that's the time to hire out. And so I remember I made a call to my mom and I was like, hey, so what do you think about like if we handle this together? And that's where it started. Like, I'll help with your deals. If you get overwhelmed, you help with mine. And then quickly, I forget who came up with the idea, but we were just like, I don't know if that's the right thing because the people want to work with me or they want to work with my mom and they don't want to really be handed off. So we were like, all right, what if we just hire out like someone to take off some of that busy work and to schedule the showings? And there was where our first assistant was born.
Like an admin.
Pretty much an admin.
Okay.
But then I really started to see the power of leverage and leveraging time and delegating. And I would say within 6 months, I was like, okay, if I can do that and they can handle my paperwork, they can schedule my showings for me, they can set up the lock boxes, they can set up the signs. What if I had somebody who could also do the showings when I wasn't available? And then became our first kind of buyer's agent technically. And then it just...
Were they all like, hey, they're like a showing assistant? So licensed buyer's agent, but like they're just showing.
No, actually it was, and this is a little different than most models, but it was based off of referral. So it was like, basically if a lead came in that wasn't like a real friend or like a sphere or like a direct referral to me, say it was a lead, we just gave it to them.
Okay.
And we're like, we'll take a percentage.
Got it.
And again, I know that's where most team models are now, but at that time, teams were like kind of like new almost.
Right.
Like, yes, you had independent boutique brokerages and stuff like that, but the team model didn't fully evolve at that time. And so it's kind of new territory. And my mom had some hesitation to it. She's like, well, then we're giving up this income. My mind, like I mentioned in the business, I'm like, time is money. And if I can find other ways to recruit and get more business, then what's the point? You know, why not?
Right.
And why not buy back my time?
100% of zero is still zero.
Exactly. Right. And then if I'm going to burn out anyways, like that was the biggest driving factor. I'm like, I do not want to fail at this and then just burn out again. And then now I'm on to a different career.
Yeah.
So that fear was always behind me of like, how do I scale this to make it to where I can have my time? And then again, back to like why I didn't want to go into real estate. I wanted my weekends. So I'm like, what do I do to get those? And the apparent answer was just hiring, scaling, bringing new people around me.
I like that you had the big vision and then just reverse engineered it to say, all right, here's what I need to do to build it so that I can get there.
Exactly.
That's astute. So how big did your team ever get?
So currently right now we have 12 agents and then my mom and I run the team. So 14 agents total that are producing and then 2 TCs, 1 admin.
Solid.
Yep.
And is your admin still doing the same things as before?
So the original admin turned into our full-time TC.
Okay.
So admin, actually, I hire out with a VA now. So that's kind of evolved in its own too, and that's kind of interesting. But yeah, and we keep it kind of tight-knit because when we built the team, I did it intentional, and I actually, at that time, I had a few mentors that I was bouncing stuff off, and both of them said, I know it seems like you want a big team and that's going to create all this income, but it also creates so many problems. Like imagine dealing with 50, 60, 70 people in the day. That becomes your job.
Right.
And it ultimately ended up being one of the best pieces of advice I ever had, because you can still run
cap your business.
Exactly. Well, you can run a profitable team as long as you put the right people around you. And it can only be 10, it can be 5 people if they're producing and you have a tight knit community. But when you get to 50 people, it's like no matter what, you've grown teams, you're going to have that 40%, 30% that aren't producing and they're just sucking time and energy.
You'd end up having to hire somebody else to be like a sales manager.
Exactly.
Right. And then an operations manager. Right.
And we're still looking at that too. But again, as you get more people, the fixed costs get higher and whatnot. And again, I know a few teams right now that are really struggling, and they're doing great through the boom, and now they've just got all this overhead. And when things slow down, when you have that much overhead and fixed costs, it's very hard.
That's a good point.
Where we're very keen on our costs and whatnot.
So I love talking about playbooks, right?
Okay.
And so how do you, where's your business coming from currently?
So currently I'd say number one is sphere of influence and referrals. So I've definitely, April will be 10 years in the business for me. So luckily I've built up that pipeline, that database of people where I'm able to get referrals from it.
And now the sphere, so is that also include the closed client database as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have people that I know that send me referrals, could be friends that I've not done business with, but there's those people. Maybe some business professionals, CPAs, financial planners, but then there's also the database. So they're in there together.
Correct. So, well, technically past client has its own bucket.
Okay, cool. Okay, good.
But yeah, I call that that's like 87% of my business.
All right.
Is like sphere and past client referral.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean that I don't do anything else and I've given up prospecting, because I'm very strict on that with me, myself, and my team. Of you have to put that first. I know so many agents that they wake up and they just let the day happen to them. Like wherever they're going to go, maybe they have an inspection, maybe they have showings or whatever. What I try to teach my team, and I try to go by standards on my own, is like the morning is sacred. And for me, it's the morning. For others, it might be a different workflow. Maybe it's at night, but for me, it's the morning is sacred. Prospecting is sacred, where you cannot hinder that. Like you got to wake up.
No matter what, that's getting done.
Exactly. So for me, it's circle prospecting. Like to answer your question, that's my go-to. So, and you can do it with listings. It helps if they are actually your listings. I'll be honest, it makes it a lot easier to circle prospect, but you can actually leverage other people's listings. For us, luckily, that's a big value we give to our team. You can leverage our listings and call them your own because you're on our team. But not sure how familiar. I know you know of circle prospecting, but I don't know if you want me to dive into that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, circle prospecting is you pick a house and then you're just going to prospect around the house. But where a lot of agents get tripped up is they'll just do one thing, one activity. Like maybe it's send a mailer and be like, oh, just listed, just sold, like 1,000 other realtors are doing. And that's part of the strategy. Like you do want to do a mailer, but that's only one little piece. So what I do is I get the listing, and even before the listing appointment, I'll go to the community, I'll door knock the closest neighbors, and I'll say, hey, I'm out here on an appointment with one of your neighbors. Just wanted to let you know he's considering selling. We're going to go through that option today. But I did want to let you know, and I'll let you know first once the price. Would you like that? Or once we designate the price, would you care to know that? And nosy neighbors, man, like they love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they want to hear, they want to hear the spilt tea or whatever's, whatever's coming up. So that's number one. And then I meet with them, and let's say I don't even get it. I've already connected with all those neighbors,
Right.
and I'm going to continue to mail them. But I do have a pretty good conversion rate once I do get in front of somebody at a listing appointment. So I get, right now I'm about 82% on the ones I go on. So pretty
You really
decent.
know your numbers.
Yeah, pretty.
87%, 82%.
Yeah,
That's a good quality.
Yeah, I'm kind of analytical
I
that
like
way. So anyways, when I do get the listing, now it becomes, okay, mix the marketing plan in with new business prospecting. So basically, I'll send out the mailer. I did the door knock already, so I've already talked to many neighbors at that point. Now I'm sending out the mailer to let them know it's coming soon. And then when we just list it, I send out another mailer, just listed. And then now once they've got 3 touches from me, which is either the door knocking or the mailers, whatever I'm doing, it's 3 touches. That's just, I don't know where I came up with it, but that's just a strategy. Now I call them. And now I pull the whole data list from the community and I start calling them, letting them know, hey, we just listed. Just wanted to give you the exciting news. This is the price we decided to go on. What do you think about the price? And that's it. And I just let them talk. And You'll see some of them be like, oh, they'll never get that. Oh, that's priced too low. What are you doing? And then it comes in like a joking conversation. I'm like, well, what would you price it at based on your research? And it starts a conversation.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And so now we got the call, and then I'll continue to call throughout the process of the home, like all the different milestones of selling the home. So just listed, coming soon, just listed, any price drops, price reductions, they'll get a call.
Open house.
When we go pending, yep, if the neighbor or the owner allows open houses, that's all part of it too. Mm-hmm. And for open houses, I could talk that strategy too. But yeah, open house, invite them to the open house. When it goes pending and sold, that's one of the best calls. Hey, great news.
Got that price.
Yep, got sold. Yep, they're on their way to Texas. And I'd make it like a real story that they can feel. Like, hey, Brian and Susie are now on their way to Texas. They're excited about it. They got the price they wanted. Just wanted to give you an update. And again, it's like I never asked for like a sale or a close once. Mm-hmm. It's just now like, wow, that guy is on it.
Yes.
He follows up. He communicates. He did what he said he was going to do. Give me updates throughout the process. And
this is all to neighbors.
All just to neighbors.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And again, you can do it with any listing. It's a little tricky when it's not yours. You just got to change the scripting a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it's a little less authentic when it's not your listing. But again, if you're on a team, or you're in a brokerage, I mean, just use your brokerage listings. Yes. You can still say those are your company's listing. Mm-hmm. And then, all the way through the close process. And then meanwhile, they're not getting just the mailers. They're not just getting the calls and the door knocking. They're getting an email campaign that's already been built out to where that's just one click. That's totally scalable. But it's just all of these touch points that they're getting, and you're just like in their face. And then the last and final step, once that's done, we upload them into a social media campaign to where now they're targeted with just our random ads of like new listings or maybe just home searches of homes with pools under 500 grand. And now they're seeing that brand awareness come through.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous playbook. Yeah. I mean, it's got the mail, call, visit, email, social media. It's got everything in there. So what do you think, if you said, hey, I in history, because you're good with numbers, I've done that. So I have the house, and then you've done all the circle prospecting with that kind of playbook. How many new clients do you usually acquire from that? Just opportunities.
Right. So you may not believe this when I say it, but there's one community. It's actually where I got my first condo and lived in out of college when I moved out of my parents' house. And that's where I first started the circle. I didn't even know what circle prospecting was. I was just doing it. I was doing door hangers and knocking doors and doing community events. It's off Hayden and Indian School community there. I ended up going on to sell 42 homes in that community.
Wow.
It's a condo complex of 42 units.
Yeah, still. Yeah.
But that was where it was all born. And I was like, wow, this can really work. And it even got to the point to where I acquired off GoDaddy, a website that, believe it or not, the HOA didn't have. And it was the nameofthecommunity.com.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You still have it?
I still have it, but this is where the story gets pretty funny. So they said first they tried to litigate me out of having that. They said, you don't own it, you don't own the community. And I said, well, one, where is it well, my attorney did. Where is it? I'm not that smart, but where is it trademarked? And they had no trademark on the name, nothing. You can do nothing. Mm-hmm. And so they had like 5 board meetings, and it was like the topic. And mind you, I'm living in the community at the time. So I'm getting the notes like on email and whatnot. And finally, they voted to switch the name of the community.
Wow.
Over it. They offered me $10,000 for the domain. But at its height, it was getting 60,000 visits on Google per month. And that's mostly people asking for directions, people calling, seeing what the HOA was. It got to the point where it was like they thought I was the HOA. And I was like, I need to step back a little bit from that. But they ended up switching the community's name altogether.
Wow. That's crazy.
Because I didn't sell them the domain. Yep.
Do you wish you would have sold it? No,
because even while they scaled up with the new name, now it's phased out. Now that the new name's there, they built a Google page and whatnot.
They trademark it?
I'm sure they did. I would hope they did.
They've learned.
Yeah. But no, I'm not kidding. I was getting 2 to 3 clients every few months off of just that website. Because again, people would call in, ask either HOA questions or think I was the sales office. Like, hey, is this the rental office or the sales office? And I was like, no, I'm not, but I'm a local realtor and I live in the community. I know it very well. I knew everything on the back of my hand, like HOAs, any assessments coming up, when the roofs were done. So I just had that knowledge on the call. And they're like, okay, that's the person who I want to work with.
Being the resource.
And it just scaled up to, again, 42 homes to this day. And I still get business in that community. And I don't even do any marketing to it anymore.
That's killer.
Yeah.
And have you taken some of those clients too, and they've now moved out of the condos, bought houses, and so it's just a ripple effect.
It was, it really launched. And again, back to circle prospecting, where that really launched the career. It really did. And right now I've got a Gilbert listing. That's my 3rd listing in the community in 2 months, just based off of
doing the same formula.
Yeah. And we're talking way different price points now, 800, 900K.
Right.
So it hits a little different once you're out of the condo game. Like, it's great to have that volume, but if you're able to do it on a high level on listings that are 500, $1 million and above, now you're talking a real business.
That's a great formula. I love that playbook. That's awesome. Yes, best one yet. Hey, so let's talk about what you do for your database. So specifically the closed clients, you've done business with them. Do you have some sort of a formula that you have, a playbook for them?
Yeah, I honestly, I could do better at that. And that's kind of my goal in the new year is to have more touches with them and have more authentic touches, I'd say, whether that's like events, inviting them to, Cardinals games or whatever. So that is my goal in the new year here. But currently they're all on mailing campaigns. They get an update mailing postcard, home valuation. We're using that. We used to use HomeBot, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but now we use YLOPO. They've got like a seller experience, which we thought was a little bit better than HomeBot. Still 2 great programs. So they get their monthly home valuation report sent to them in their email. And then quarterly, we do some type of event. So for instance, in November, we're doing a pie drive.
Cool.
And we just invite the whole database out to get pie around the Thanksgiving time. And funny story on that is last Thanksgiving was the first year I did it. And I didn't even do the drive. I've learned now, again, you learn your mistakes and then do things better. But so last year I actually hand delivered to my top 50 VIP clients a pie and wine or whatever I wanted to put with it. But the thing I learned is it was so time consuming. And that's the one thing I would have changed. But the thing that was great about it is there was no better connection than getting there with the pie, sitting in their living room, catching up.
Absolutely. You sold them.
Yeah, it was like worth its weight in gold. And the funniest part about it is the pie had like a little QR code on it to get your home value. Same system, went to the YLOPO. And I remember 2 days after Thanksgiving, I wake up, I hop in my normal daily routine, look in the database, and there's all these addresses populating on my side. I'm like, what's going on? And then I just quickly remember, I'm like, this, no way, this is from the QR code. And then I get a text from my friend, and he's like, hey, man, wanted to say thanks again for the pie. It was hilarious. All the family in town was passing around the top to the pie, scanning it for their home values. Wow. And I was getting like California, I was getting Texas, I was getting New York, like all these random addresses. But it was just cool to see the concept.
We're doing that again.
Yeah.
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 Now, are you going to do it? How are you going to do it differently this year?
So this year it's going to be like inviting them all. We're going to run an event. So it's just going to be everybody come to us, and we're planning on where we're going to do that, but some type of cool event. We've gone back and forth, like a Top Golf or putt, something like that. But we're just going to invite everybody out and have the pies stacked up and ready to go.
Take the pie when they come.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good idea. I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
Because we do the pie, but we have them just come to our office. So
Okay. So
we
similar.
We set up a landing page so they can pick the type of pie, apple or pumpkin, because we do Costco.
I like that.
And then they reserve it by the Friday before Thanksgiving. And they just have to pick it up the Tuesday afternoon before Thanksgiving. So reserve it by Friday, pick up Tuesday, and we just do it at our office. That way it gives us the Monday or Tuesday morning before to go to Costco with a couple cars, pick them all up, bring them here, and then have them ready to go.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
So, but that was the office. I mean, I like yours. The other thing I got to figure out this time is, and think about it if you do an event, is if you're doing like the pumpkin one's got to stay cold.
Yeah, good
So
point.
I got to pick it up Tuesday morning if I'm going to do an event Tuesday afternoon. And it's got to not be warm out.
Good point.
Right. Or
Glad we're talking through this.
Yeah, right. Or you do apple or pecans got so much sugar in it can't go bad.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just apple or pecan.
Yeah,
right?
good point.
That's
I got to figure out the logistics. Mm-hmm. So that's good.
I like that. We did a video, but my video was thanks for grabbing the pie, not here's my QR code to HomeBot.
Okay.
Right? Because they're all on HomeBot.
Yeah.
But I'm going to think of something else, something different.
Yeah, just anyway, and then maybe if it's just a brand, I'm sure you put a label on the pie or something, with a brand or something, but yeah.
What's some of your other events that you do?
So we'll do like team events too, like team appreciation ones. We just did one a week ago. We just did bowling at Bolero.
Oh, fun.
So we try to keep that, that culture feel and the vibes high, both for clients and
team.
And team.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing as a team owner. It's like your clients are both your clients and really your agents.
That's true.
So it's almost like you got to handle both. And I've learned ways to do that over time and scale it. But yeah, those are the big events.
Do you get into, we're starting to get to the end of the year, right? We're like literally Q4 starts now. Do you do any business planning? I know I already know the answer. You're going to say you do business planning, but do you ever do it with the team?
We do. Yeah. So we don't just do once a year. Oh, now it's October or November. Let's start planning. We actually do quarterly reviews with our agents. So just what it sounds like. Every quarter we sit down, we say, okay, here were your goals. Did you hit them? Yay or nay? What are your goals for the next quarter? What could you have changed if you didn't hit them? And we go down this whole list. As you can imagine, they're pretty analytical all the way down to like how many calls you have to make to get this many deals and what conversion rates you should be getting. So we do the quarterly, and then yes, we do a full-on business plan. But really, the business plan is just breaking up your 4 quarters, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you're almost dialing in your quarters ahead of time.
Yep.
I found it a little bit better to do it that way personally than say, oh, this is your goal all next year.
Right.
Because then it starts to get in the back of your head of like,
so far
I'll
in the
hit
distance.
it. Yeah, it's so far away.
It gives you so much time and less urgency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you break it into quarterly or almost even monthly, if you can do it, that's in my opinion, the real hack to really make sure you're on point with your numbers.
There's there's a book called The 12-Week Year, and he talks about that. You chunk it up because it's so far out. It's 52 weeks away. You're like, hey, I'm going to be this much in weight or this much GCI or this many units. And it's so far out. You're like, yeah, I'll get there. Yeah. It's all right. We'll get there. Right. Yeah. Versus, hey, let's say, it's 100 and we'll say, okay, so it's 25 by first quarter. And you're like, whoa, that thing brought it so close.
It did.
You're like, man, okay. Now you feel it. You're like, all right, if you're feeling it, then you're like, all right, good. That's a good goal.
Right.
Right. Now, like you said, what's now the daily activity, weekly, monthly, that's going to get you there? And one of my coaches, he assigned the, it's called like the better better self journal or self journal? I have one. And you every quarter you start off with, all right, where do you want to be in the next 12 weeks?
Oh, I love that.
And then you back down to like where it's daily.
Wow.
Did I do that activity to get there? And it's and then that book, it becomes your quarterly. That might actually be something that's good to gift to the team, since you're already running in quarters with them.
That's a
I'll
great
get you a
idea.
link for that one.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's cool that you now. Do you do any personal goals with them or financial goals, or is it just professional?
Absolutely. So when a new agent comes on, the first thing we talk about is, what is your why? Like, why are you in this? And at that time, maybe they can't answer it. And that's what we found. But we challenge them to go out and figure out truly what's driving them to get into real estate. Money isn't enough. Because again, like we just talked about, oh, I want to make 100 or 200,000. It's almost like this year, you're right. One, it's too far away, so they're not thinking about it daily. And number two, for some people, it's like, oh, that's the dream. Let me get to that. But when you have a why, to where every morning you're like, I am doing this for a purpose, it's a lot different than I'm just doing this and letting the day happen to me. So we're big on, when you come in, what's your purpose? Let's build that out. And the ultimate hack that I've found with training people and agents is just not jumping down their throat. Why did you not hit this? Why did you not? It's just, what got in the way? Was it bigger than your why? And if that's the case, then your why is not strong enough. I mean, let's be honest.
Right.
So again, big thing, very simple, but we start right off with that. And so we want to set that mindset, and then mindset's the other part that we want to set right away, of what it takes to be in real estate. I mean, it's a grind. And so do they really have the mindset? And if they don't, that's fine. Let's build it up. Let's set their expectations of what they're coming into. Because again, a lot of agents graduate, the schooling, and they're like, okay, one, either where do I start, or I'm just going to go in and see what happens and what comes to me, versus having a full-on plan of what I'm going to do to execute. So mindset, why, and then the financial part, absolutely. Like, we're talking to our agents about taxes. Simple as that. Like, no, I'm not going to give you tax advice, but I'm going to tell you what I do, because I've had several agents that have come and gone that didn't put any money away for taxes. And then at the end of the year, they just get hit with this bill.
Ouch.
And that's how you crush a business really fast.
Yes.
Not preparing for that. And then savings. I mean, we've had conversations the other day with agents of like, what should I be putting away? Because I don't have a 401k when I'm an agent.
Right.
Like, what should I be doing? And again, I don't give the financial advice. I always push it off to like the CPA, but I say, this is what I do. I mean, not saying it's the perfect plan, but you need to prepare for it.
Yeah.
Because real estate's tricky, man. And there's so many agents that it will happen to, and they get the check and they're excited, and then they go off on vacation or go buy a car right away because they think, oh, maybe that's just going to keep happening.
Yeah.
And
Like
it
you said,
might.
it's a business, right? And if
It
they don't
is.
keep some money set aside for the, hey, no clients came in the door this day, this week, this month, or hey, it's going to be 6 months till I get a paycheck. Do you have 6 months of reserves before you even start a job here? Are you going to be okay? Like, I always tell agents, I teach at the new agent school, and I say, hey, look, I'm not dissuading you from jumping in, but here's what I would want to make sure I know is, how much does it cost me to live every month? Like, what's your survival number?
Oh, I love
And
that.
if you're living from home, great, but you're still spending some money every month. So how much is it?
Right.
And then do you have enough to go 6 months without a paycheck?
Yeah.
And if you can go 6 months and get on the right team, you'll be able to get the activity to at least get a deal going to then go. But if you set yourself up to where you're like, no, man, I need a paycheck within the next 30 days. Like, I need now money. You're setting yourself up to fail to get into real estate.
That is 100%, no doubt, true.
So let's talk. So I love the planning. I love that it's personal, it's professional, it's financial, like covered everything with the team. Like, how cool is it to jump on a team where the team leader's helping you do all that? Because a lot of times you jump into a job, I'm sure like you and I both have. Like, I was lucky when I went to my martial arts school, my teacher would take me through and say, hey, Greg, so every year we're going to do this 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. What do you want to see personally and professionally?
Wow.
So within your martial arts, what belt, what stuff do you want to learn? Do you want to start? Like, I was like, oh, I want to learn kickboxing, and I want to learn Muay Thai, and I want to learn jiu-jitsu. And he's like, okay. So he knew what I wanted. And then he would say, okay, cool, now we're going to break it down. And he would go back, what do we need to do over the next 6 months? What's your training need to look like now to get to those 1, 3, and 5 year? And then on the personal ones, he would just touch base with me. Everyone said, hey, did you pay down that credit card?
Oh,
Hey, you
that's
starting to
great.
do that. Hey, how's
We
it
need
going
more
at
people like that.
school? Right.
Yeah.
So that's not exactly like what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
We try, and I mean, it is hard. And as you know, like most agents or all agents are independent contractors at the end of the day. So even if you're on a team, yes, the systems are there, the lead flow might be there, but that's while you're in the office, and you go home and it's all on you, once you go home, whether that's, personal relationship goals or financial goals or all that. And it's just different because it's a bunch of independent contractors, but it's still technically a company. So it's a daily struggle for sure to kind of keep the ship in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, you're doing all the right things. And I like going back, I like the capped business philosophy of like, hey, if I just keep the right people in here and it's, it's 10, it's 15, because if too many's too much and can almost go back to where you have that burnout again.
Yep.
Right. I can run a profitable business and with a great culture and achieve more than my goals while I help them achieve more than their goals.
Yep. And that's part of, I know in the beginning I mentioned bouncing off the mentors and whatnot. And even the mentors I had, I saw some things that I didn't like in their plans. So for instance, there are a lot of teams, let's face it, where the agent comes in and they're like, this is your CRM. Here's the leads. You're just going to work the leads as they come in, and they're all these like top of funnel leads and whatnot. Our model and what I set out to do when we built the team is to actually give them the blueprint and the foundation of what they need to do to be an actual independent, successful agent. And again, there's a lot of agents that are successful because they plug into a system, and that system does work. Like they've great teams, great, I'm not saying anything against the team leads, but what happens when they say, oh, this team's not for me anymore, or I'm done giving up a split and I want to go somewhere else? Well, now they're back to square one because they didn't really teach them the foundational stuff. And again, like you said, that's business, that's personal, that's finance. And that's what we set out. We almost call it, it's free business for the agent. So basically, we're not going to say you're a buyer's agent. And I know it started that way, but it's evolved into like, you're just a partner. We're going to help you. We're going to give you the platform and the blueprint to succeed. But if your model is open house, go for it. If you're a great cold caller, do that.
Yeah.
We'll just give you the support and the systems to do it. And I think that's where a lot of teams go wrong. And we're seeing it come out right now, where it's just one model, feed them leads, feed them the rah sales stuff. And then what do they do now in a shifting market where it's harder to convert an online buyer lead?
Right.
They have no other leg to stand on or no other pillar because they weren't really taught all of the foundational, I guess, strategies in real estate.
To build that, multiple legs of a stool, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great philosophy.
Yeah, we talk a lot about pillars. So 3 major lead pillars. You got outbound, which is like cold calling, inbound, which is basically things you pay for to come into you, like a realtor.com lead. And then we've got sphere and networking. So those are our 3 major ones. And we always like our agents to have at least two of them going. Because that's what makes it steady. Like you said, the table, I mean, 2 doesn't make a table steady, but it makes it more steady than if you just have 1 and that falls over.
Yeah, one's gonna fall. Right. And I'm putting all my eggs in one basket, so to speak, versus having the 2, 3.
Yeah.
Right. Especially, being brand new, I have to do some of those inbound, outbound activities because because you have sphere maybe from like, I left my previous job, or I was in college, or I grew up here, that kind of stuff. But there's no closed database to have that relational sale for the next move that they're going to make, or them referring you a friend, family, or coworker. So you have to figure out what are those other 3 that you're going to go and mentor with someone really good at it, that's willing to share their playbook, but then also run those plays alongside you till you pick it up and learn it.
Yep. You said it right there. That's the ultimate hack, is either join a team or get a mentor that's been there. And I wish I would have done that a lot sooner. My mom was in the business, but by that time she was referral only. So she wasn't teaching me how to go do cold calling or anything. But the second I did hire my first mentor, it changed my life. And even before the mentor, I spent so much money on all the shiny objects. And you get it in real estate. Hey, there's the new system. Hey, here's the new leads. They do this. For $200, you get 1,000 leads a month. I'm like, no way. That's just what I need. Boom, fail.
Zero.
Spent $1,000, zero. And once I kind of piggybacked on someone else who knew what they were doing, it made it a lot smoother, where it's like, hey, put your money there. It's worth it. Do these activities. You're going to get, good result from them. And again, I don't know how new agents come in and just try to wing it, especially in this market. I mean,
You got to find a mentor.
or a team
It's
you can
the
plug
fast
into.
pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if you just use that team, and I'm saying this from a team owner, I don't care. Even if you just use the team to plug in and learn what you can, get the golden nuggets, and figure out what you want to do, and then move on, so be it. But don't try to wing it on your own.
It's a win-win anyways. Someone comes on the team, they're contributing to the team, they're learning off of the team, and if eventually they're like, this isn't for me, I want to go independent, but just don't go independent right off the bat because you got no resources. The school isn't teaching you any of the street smarts.
Oh, that's for sure.
So latching onto a team.
Yeah. And I think a lot of agents get splits in their mind of like, I don't want to give up that split. I don't want to do that. But, it's invaluable what you
what
learn.
you're getting for the split, because now I'm getting all the years of knowledge
Exactly.
and you had said before, but what not to do.
That's the
like-
biggest thing. That's
yeah.
going to save you more than your split, I guarantee you,
100%.
than trying to figure out and reinvent the wheel yourself. And honestly, that's part of our interview process. If they come right out and like, what's your split? Like, that's a knock. I'm not saying we're not hiring them, but it's a knock, because they're like, they don't see the value of mentorship right away. And we know what we give to value or what we can offer. So yeah, I mean, I would have worked for free for 2 years if I had to get what I did from my first 2 mentors.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. Well, this has been fun, man.
Yeah.
I could keep going. Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate you having
Looking
me.
forward to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, brother.